Lesson 4.6. Will this chapter ever end? Looks like we have 3 more lessons to go before we're done with chapter 4. So anyway, 303, evaluating formulas. What we're going to do here is, on the last section I was giving you story problems and you had to come up with your own equation to solve these. In this section they're going to give you the equation, you're just going to plug in numbers. So in some respects it's a little bit easier. Well, let's look at example 1 on page 303. Middle of the page with the horses and the pen there. And it gives me an example. 1. The perimeter, P, of a rectangular livestock pen is 40 feet. If the width is 6 feet, find the length. So, they're telling me that the perimeter of this pen is 40 feet. Alright, and they're also telling me the width is 6. Alright, so from what we've done at this point, you know that perimeter means we're going to add this side, this side, this side, and this side together and get 40 feet. But one of the things about math is there's a lot of times formulas for doing things. So instead of adding all 3 of these together, the formula is actually take 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, and that'll give you the perimeter. So actually, instead of 6 plus 6, they're saying 2 times 6. Oh, I'm sorry, or L in this case. This would be the L, and this would be the width. So 2 times the width plus 2 of these L's. So it's the same thing as adding all 4 sides up. It's just a formula that's made into a multiplication problem there. So given that formula, which that formula exists in the solution part of this example, bottom of page 303, it says the perimeter is 40 feet equals 2 times length, which we don't know what L is, but we do know what the width is, 6. So once we plugged in the 6 for the W, we just solve it like we have been doing all the time. Okay, minus 12, so that's 28 equals 2L. Divide by 2, that goes away. L then is 14. And that's what they're asking for. Find the length. So, that's what we're going to be doing in this lesson, is we'll give you the formula, give you enough information, and then you're supposed to plug the information they give you in and solve from there. Example 2 on page 304. They've got this wild formula, C equals 5/9 times the quantity F minus 32. Now this is the formula to go from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So if you know it's 70 degrees Fahrenheit, you put 70 in for F, for Fahrenheit, subtract 32, multiply it by 5/9, and that'll translate it into Celsius for you. It would really be a handy formula if it was easy to remember, but it's not, so it's kind of awkward to use. But there's the formula, and they're telling me that F is 95 degrees. So let's rewrite this. Okay, and this is where our order of operations comes in handy. 95 minus 32 is 63. And we're going to multiply that times 5/9, and that will give us our C. So, let's put this over 1 because we are multiplying fractions. So 5 times 63, and then 9 times 1. You could do it that way and end up with 315 over 9. And then if you reduce that, that reduces to 35 degrees Celsius. So if it's 95 outside, Celsius, it's really 35. Notice we didn't do anything really that difficult or new. We just took whatever they told us F is, plugged it in here, and then used basic arithmetic then to solve it. We didn't have a variable in there to worry about or anything. Alright, so let's look at example 3. Use the formula y equals 2x plus 6. There's our formula. And they're telling us that x equals -2. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug a -2 whenever we see an x. Sometimes it might be more than one place, and we just put that -2 in wherever we see it. So y equals negative 4 plus 6, y equals 2. So that's really all we're doing here. Got some basic formulas that they're going to give you. In fact, the one formula that you need to make sure you know is called a rate equation. It deals with miles per hour, feet per second, that kind of thing. And what it is D equals R times T. Or I usually write it just D equals RT. And what that means is the distance that you go equals the speed times the time. So for example, if you're going 60 miles an hour for 3 hours, if you multiply 60, your speed, times t, your time, 60 times 3 is 180. That's your distance. So that's all there is to that. And there's some manipulation. If, for instance, you want to know how fast you're going. Well, if you go 150 miles in 3 hours, 150 divided by 3 means you're going 50 miles per hour. That's your rate. The other formula is time. It's an R there. What that means, let's do our 150 miles again. 150, and you're going 50 miles an hour. 150 divided by 50 is 3, so your time is 3 hours. So all three of these formulas are very useful. So be able to use those. So for example, example number 5. It says on page 305. At 1 p.m., Jordan leaves her house and drives at an average speed of 50 miles per hour. So that's her speed, or her rate. To her sister's house, she arrives at 4 p.m. Alright, so how long did it take her? She left at 1, she got there at 4, so her time was 3. 3 hours. So A says, how many hours was the drive to her sister's house? We just established that was 3 hours, the difference between 1 and 4 p.m. How many miles from her sister does Jordan live? So what are we looking for? We're looking for miles. So we're looking at using this formula because D is miles. And that's what we're looking for. The variable by itself is what we're looking for. If we were looking at how fast she was going, we'd use this. Or how long it took, we'd use this. But since we're looking for distance, we use that formula. So distance equals our R times our time. So the distance was 150 miles. Don't forget to put your units of measure on there so that you can let people know how far people are, what kind of unit instead of feet or kilometers or something like that. Alright, well that's pretty much all there is to this lesson. Kind of short and sweet. We will look on page 307 just real briefly. We'll look at some problems there. 13. They give you a formula in the example, or in the instructions, they give you I equals P times R times T. And they tell you that P is $1,000. I'm looking at number 13. And they tell me that R is 7 over 100. And they give me T as being 2. And what they're looking for, if you look in the instructions, is I. And that's interest. Now just real briefly, what this says is, if we take our principal, P, the amount of money, so you put $1,000 in savings. The interest rate is 7 over 100, or this would be 7%. So you put $1,000 in the bank at 7% for 2 years. How much interest are you going to make off of that money? So you multiply all three of these together, and you end up getting the number $140. So that tells you that you made $140 off that $1,000 you put in the bank for 2 years. So you get the $1,000 back, and you get an additional $140 in interest. So now you have $1,140 total. So that's what they're asking for numbers 13 and 14, is to use this formula right here. But other than that, you should do just fine on problem set 4.6.